Donald Stojack is going to talk to James Allen today. And I met James recently and I really was impressed with him. And today we're kind of, the 800-pound gorilla is time, right? And it's like, what do we do with our time and how do we discern that? But we're going to kind of take it from the aspect of, are you going after the right things? Okay. So if we can get there faster for ourselves, so I want you to kind of look at this from two perspectives. And James, we're going to kind of dialogue on this thing here, but thinking it from the aspect of ourselves, because if you don't put your mask on first, when you get in the airplane, right, you can't help the other. So we got to get our own mask on first. Okay, what are we doing? But then think about it from the aspect of the market in front of you. I think if you can help them become enlightened on this as well, you're going to have a much easier time of moving people in your direction, whether they're coming into a group or working with you one-on-one or whatever you're selling. Does that make sense? So we're going to kind of dissect it from both of those angles. Is that fair enough? So James, how do you get closer to really knowing what is this that you should be going after in life? What are some of the parameters that you work with that maybe we can play with here today?
A little bit of backstory, because I know I'm new and people are like,
"Oh yeah, sorry about that." Yeah,
no, it's okay.
like, well, yeah. Who is James Allen? That's such an unusual name,
right? Yeah, came out with a good book, back in the early 1900s that still riding off of. But yeah, so real quick, I mean, just like quick background is I was in construction work. I followed my dad's footsteps. I was doing 6 figures per year, and I was like 22 years old, and I had really good. You went to school with the James Allen. That's awesome. But I had really good benefits and everything. I just had like the dream job and everyone saw me as successful. And then I wasn't happy. And I knew that there had to be something else that I wanted to do. So I ended up finding out about coaching, and I got into a coaching institute called Life Mastery Institute, which is now Brave Thinking Institute. And Mary Morrissey.
Yep.
Yeah. She's awesome. And she's a good friend of the late and great Bob Proctor. And that's kind of what kickstarted my whole coaching journey. And then I, got into productivity, and I was just obsessed with how do I work fewer hours and still grow my business and just be more efficient with my time. And I saw a lot of people struggling with that in terms of like their technology, and just, they could be so much more efficient. Their desktops are just a mess when I'd work with people and stuff like that. And pinpointing the right kind of tasks, I got really good at that. And then that's where I found out about digital products and passive income. And I started to make products and then make passive income. That was meeting with my clients, and they were like, can you help me with that? So that's kind of what led to Profit Your Knowledge ultimately. But it's been a 5-year journey thus far, and I'm still growing and learning and whatnot. So that's just a little bit of background about me. But what you asked, Donald, about like, is it the right thing we're actually pursuing? Productivity, efficiency, there's no point in actually pursuing something if it's the wrong path. It's like, there's an old picture of someone who, it was like an old meme, and it was someone climbing up a ladder only to realize that they were climbing the wrong ladder. And then they look back and they're like, wow, I could have been, so much further in a better off position. So what's the way that we actually pinpoint that we are on the right track, or how can we decide if we're going to make some shifts to be on the right track? I think that it is a great conversation. And in my coaching institute with Mary Morrissey, this was a huge part of it, because we were big on helping people find life purpose, career changes, the right kind of relationships, all these different things, choices to make with your health, etc. And there was a 5-question test that she taught us that, Donald mentioned. He was like, it'd be cool to cover this. So we're going to go over the 5 questions, but then we'll tie it into, how it's helped with like business and how we can help with marketing and all that sort of sales too, obviously, which is the big reason why I think we're all kind of here too.
And so the big thing is to, as we're doing this, because some of the stuff we've all heard it before, okay? And so the goal here is I want you guys to really double down and hear it from multiple perspectives. That makes sense? From the inside looking out, outside looking in, you looking at others, them looking at you. Does that make sense? And so if you can kind of filter it that way as we move through this, that's where the gold is at.
Yeah. So the 5 questions, just a bird's eye view of them, and then we can break them each down, is, does my dream, or this goal that I have in my mind, give me more life? Does the dream align with my core values? Does the dream require me to grow? Does the dream require help from a higher power? And does my dream have good in it for other people or others? So the first question is, does my dream give me more life? And when I was teaching this in like the life coaching stuff, I would always mention this quote, which was by Howard Thurman, who was a mentor to Martin Luther King. And he said, don't do what you think the world needs, do what gives you life, because what the world needs are more people who've come alive. And I just love that quote. And that's always what's kind of driven me through, life coaching, to switch my niche to productivity, to switch my niche to diving into the competitive business space, because it's a very saturated market. There's a lot of people, or people can see it as saturated, and it's like going into that. But it's like, in the end, it really just gave me life to realize that the life coaching and teaching this in the way I was doing it, because I'm doing it right now. This is the same material back then, but it's from a different lens. It just stopped being exciting for me and giving me real joy and life, and just like Donald's huge on energy. And that's something I really like about you, because that was like one of the big things that I took from my life coaching, was listening to my intuition and becoming more intuitive and paying attention to my energy on a day-to-day basis. If I'm really stressed in my business, what I do is I walk out and take my dog on a walk and don't bring my phone. I just hang out, and kind of ask questions and sit with myself and my pup, and just like paying attention to my energy and why I'm feeling down, getting curious about the way that I'm feeling. Because if I just keep pushing, then it's going to put me in a bad situation on sales calls, which Donald's huge on too, where I'm on a sales call and I'm just like, I'm so attached to an outcome, that it just like is a downward spiral, really. But yeah, I'd love to hear kind of your take on it too, Donald, and anyone else wants to chime in.
And I think a few others. I know Carly would really identify this. If you're hitting your head against a brick wall, right, and all you're getting is blood, right, and you're not breaking any of those bricks, stop. That's not it, right? And everybody here in the call has heard me talk about Bob Newhart's famous video. Just stop it. Just stop it. Okay. So does it give me life? And you got to quiet yourself, my friends. And if you've done it before, you got to do it again. Break away.
Yeah, it really does take like an inner look at yourself. And I think just the ability to really be aware with how you feel about things. Because if you think about that goal that you have, I don't know what it is. If it's like, I want to, have a 6-figure business and work 20 hours a week, if that's what the goal is, or you want to hit that new thing, and then you think about why you want those things. It's because, well, I was just on a call with someone, actually the person who just signed up for my program. She was talking about her dream, and I was digging into why. And she was saying that she wanted her daughter and granddaughter live 1,000 miles away. And she's so busy with stuff that she can't go and spend time with them, or couldn't even afford like airfare. She still signed up for my program though, which is like interesting, but we're going to get her there. And that's like my goal, is I want her by the end of my program to go hang out with her daughter and granddaughter. And yeah, it's like, you have to really just pay attention to the things that, like, when she thinks about spending that time with her daughter, I like to ask people, like, how does that make you feel when you think about that dream? And they're like, I feel electric, it's like, well, that's what I should be doing. So I think that when you think about, does it give me life? It's you feeling that electricity inside of yourself. And it's like you get an energy bump too when you think about the thing. So if you can think about this dream and it gives you that energetic bump, then that's a good sign. That's kind of the point of this question.
And so the point of attraction is something that's kind of below the surface, right? And it's so in that energy thing there too. If you can take the time to find it for yourself, and then when you engage with people, if you facilitate them finding it, does that make sense, people? Right? It's right there, and nothing else. We're not talking about pitching anything that you've got to do, right? If you can't find what their real button is, there's nothing that you can say after that that's going to make any difference. But if you can find the real button, the world's your oyster. Did you go on mute, James?
I did have my finger on mute. Yeah. But I was looking for something. Okay. There's a Yeah, no, I mean, I think that that pretty much sums up the question. Like it is kind of straightforward, but looking at it at different angles is really important. And I like what you said, Donald. It's not just about us. It's also about your client when you're going to enroll them, you know,
Mhm.
and tapping into something that does give them life. If you can go through these questions even in the back of your head and think about them like check marks on a sales call for your client making a choice to invest in you, I think that that's really big too, because these are universal questions about what's right for an individual. So if can check out the boxes like this whole thing gives them life, the agreement we have here working together does align with like core values and whatnot's going to cause them to grow, all these different questions, then you know it's a good decision for them too. And it's something I really like about what you talk about, Donald, too, is like I was listening to the recording and you were talking about it's okay if it's not the right time for someone, but
Mhm.
it's different if someone says it's not the right time out of fear
Right.
because they're afraid of moving forward. And it's our job as the salesperson or the enroller to challenge that belief.
Mhm.
And it's okay if you make a decision where you're like, I don't want to do this right now, or it's really not the time. And it's a sense of power. It's just not the right time. But it's different if I'm saying that to run away from the
Yep.
thing. And it's our job to hold them in that power to actually stick with it and come to an official yes or no.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think
Make
that's
it
really important.
make a decision. But this all plays out too. I want to kind of like step back a big picture too, and just remind everybody, think about major brands, what they're doing. They're doing this to us, right? Think about like Coca-Cola, Starbucks, right? What are they doing? Right? Pick up a can of Coke and you've got life, right? That Starbucks, that paper Starbucks cup, right? Janelle, and that spells your name correctly or incorrectly, it doesn't make any difference, right? It just that little bit, right? They make you feel like it's giving you life. Are you cluing into that? It's subtle, correct? It's the same thing, isn't it? That's a big question that should
Yeah,
be asked over and over again.
totally. Yeah, constantly coming back to that too and paying attention even to small things too of like,
Yeah.
again, just really being in tune with your energy. If I'm feeling a huge dip, there's a reason that you're feeling a dip
Yeah.
that's out of alignment. And that's really what it comes down to is alignment. That's really all these questions too.
Yeah. Well, then the next part of this too, it is that alignment. It's the core value. So how do we get to that?
Yeah. So does the dream align with your core values? If you're like, yes, this thing gives me life. I think about it. It's electric. It feels awesome. Does it align with your core values is the next phase. Your core values are who you are. And I'm not going to claim to be some professional at finding core values. I have my own take. So I think this is like the best question to really brainstorm here.
Mm-hmm.
And hear your take too. I'd be curious, Donald, on core values, and working with companies too, and the
Mm-hmm.
impact that a company's core value has on like culture. I think that's always really interesting too, because it's like they slap the core values up on the wall in the back room and everyone's like, I think integrity's on there, but what does
Yeah.
it mean? Um, I think that when it comes to core values, like this is my take. I have 3 core values currently, and they may change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they're integrity, generosity, and kindness.
Mm.
And I think about those. And it's not just like I say it to myself. I keep 3 because I think that you should have 3 to 5 that you can say off the top of your head and know exactly what they are and why you have them. But even more than that, I like 3 just because I like simplicity and the rule of thirds. But when I go throughout my day, I'm always thinking about integrity, generosity, and kindness. So if I go to a restaurant or go get my Starbucks and I see that there's 3 people working, I'll give $3 tip, or more, or something like that. It's like I don't have to tip,
Right.
or if I go to a restaurant and the service was good, I'll do 25%,
Mm-hmm.
or do a big tip, or maybe $100. Like it's something that's generosity. But even more than that, it doesn't have to be monetary too. It's just like, what does being a generous person mean to you is kind of the question. And me just giving people my time, when I work with clients, this actually happened yesterday. So I've had COVID the last week and I've been getting like 11 hours of sleep every night. And I'm pretty caught up on my sleep, I would say. But I still got 7+ hours of sleep last night or 2 nights ago. And I woke up at 4 a.m. I was just awake. And the day before, I was meeting with one of my clients and we're moving over his website and building his business on Kajabi now, which he wanted to do. it takes a lot of stuff, a lot of copy and paste. And I was showing him on the call, I'm like, it's not that hard. It's just kind of tedious and kind of time consuming. And he was just so overwhelmed and like, oh man, that's something, it's just another thing I have to do. So what I did was I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm walking around the house, just like, what can I do? And I was going to study the master class because I just had time. And Todd is the guy's name. He popped into my head, and I decided I'm just going to move over his whole website for him. It took me a couple hours, but I moved over essentially his entire website and like found the links and rebuilt like the entire thing in Kajabi and just sent him a message with me like, hey man, got your website all set up. I didn't have to do that. He was just blown away, and he messaged me. He's like, dude, are you serious? You know, I was so frustrated, and you just like built the whole thing for me. Like it's a very generous thing. It didn't require monetary value, but also there's goodwill in that with him. But I just did it because I wanted to help him, you know, and that's me living into my core value rather than me just putting it up on the wall and saying, yeah, I think it's one of those, or integrity or kindness, holding the door open for people. Like, I think that your real core values are easy to remember, 3 to 5, and you actively live into each one of them every day. That's my take on core values.
It's interesting. Years ago with one of my companies, we brought in, the consultant that came in and helped us find our mission statement. I still remember that process. It was a couple of decades back. And even though we spent some significant time in interflection, I always felt like that mission statement kind of floated on the top. In other words, it sounded nice, but we didn't really inflesh it within the business. Kind of, but not really at the core. So I think the key here too, James, is, when it comes down to core values, do you find people spitting your core values back at you? In other words, is there evidence of this being true? It's nice to say you're kind, right? But do you feel people maybe stopping you saying, oh, that was so kind of you? Are you hearing your core values? Because maybe they're not what you think they are. And there again, as you engage with other people, can you recognize their core values by how they operate? Really big time stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like everything that you do on a moment-to-moment basis is a reflection of what you value.
Yeah.
And
interesting. I touched down with Mary's, mentioning Mary's Morrissey. I've touched down with her team in the recent time frame, and they lead every call with their core values. I was very impressed. Very impressed.
Actually, I have them pulled up right here.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
That's funny you mentioned. I was like, gonna do it anyway. But yeah. So Life Mastery Institute, Brave Thinking Institute is what it is now. Mm-hmm. They have 5 core values. And what's interesting too is that it's the way they present them. Mm-hmm. Instead of just saying it by a word, they say, we believe in blank. And I think that can be helpful too, to help you like really believe in it, but also just memorize mm-hmm. it instead of just saying a word, because a word can just kind of be generic. Mm-hmm. So they say, we believe in people. We know that each one of us is far more powerful and contains more potential than any circumstance, situation, or condition. We believe in love and care. We bring sincere love and care to every interaction. We delight and surprise each other and our clients by participating wants and seeking to exceed expectations. We believe in integrity. We live what we teach. We deliver what we promise, which is something I love about integrity. Mm-hmm. Just living into what you say, like doing what you say that you do, especially when it comes to coaching too. I think leading by example is so big, and that's integrity.
Yeah.
We believe in fun. We create joy, laughter, and fun in all aspects of our work. And then we believe in growth. We grow by achieving our goals and exceeding our best. Mm-hmm. So those are their 5 values.
Yeah. And there's no surprise the level of success that they've had, because they play it out. It's obvious. It's evident. That makes sense. And so sometimes, like, if you're struggling, this is the point of how do you say, coming down to your core roots. If you're struggling, take a look at this point right here. That makes sense. Something could be out of alignment here, and you're not realizing it. And probably it's going to take getting some outside help here. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I like, when I was coming up with my 3 values, I think about, if I'm going to do 3, I'm going to think about a value that is like a little umbrella to other values. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like integrity comes with honesty, courage. I feel like these other values kind of fall under the umbrella of integrity. That's my
Yeah.
take anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and what it takes to really live by that. So I mean, write some values. You can look up core value lists and just find a huge list of them and say, "Ooh, I like this word." And then when you look up the definition, you can really see the actual definition of it. And if that resonates, then stick with it. But you can always change your core, like your main values too, because we value a lot of things. I do value courage and honesty and all
Mhm.
these different things, but those three just kind of are like, they're like the bumpers when I'm going bowling to make sure that
Yeah.
I can stay in the bumpers. And that's why I like to have three that are just simple that I can say off the top of my head and live into every day.
Carly, when I think about people on this call that in the time that I've known you, I feel like you've had this kind of like dialed in so deep, right? I mean, it's just like, I don't know where you got it from, girl, but it's just like everything that you've done has been bang, bang, bang. Are you guys paying attention? Well, we've seen Carly's spark. Well, what is that spark, right? Does that make sense? She's had this stuff lined up and deep for forever, right, Carly? I'm not just saying it.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
it just resonates. You're and I know people like what's Carly's magic? Okay, so I want you guys to kind of pay attention, like what what goes on here. Does that make sense? It's like that's a big question. It's not a surface transitional thing. And when you're engaging with the world, your marketplace, and you don't even have to say all this stuff. You don't have to say, here are my core values. Let me tell you what they are, right? They'll know it without you ever telling them. Does that make sense? It's like you don't even have to toot your own horn. It's because it's there. Got it, guys?
Yeah.
Help you out?
I feel like one of Donald's core values, whether he knows it or not, is connection.
Mm.
I feel like it is because when you're on calls, like and listening to your trainings and everything, it's just your desire to listen to people is so huge, and that you value like listening, but it's that connection with people and connecting people. This group call, it's just how you do things. So that's kind of what I see, whether you call it connection or not. But it's not something that you say like, oh, I value connection, I put it up on my
No.
wall. It's just something that you are. And I think that that's the
Yeah.
idea here.
And that's the core. So you should have those. You should know what you where you are, and you should be hearing this back from people, right?
Yeah.
That's a real good indicator.
Cool. Moving on to the next one. So your dream gives you life, gets you excited. It aligns with your values and who you are as a person and what you stand for and believe in. The third question is, does the dream require me to grow? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Is it going to require you to learn, like starting a business? Can you guys think about when you first decided, I'm going to start a business? Did it scare you? Did it make you be like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to get clients? And there's a lot, like a sense of that kind of fear that does come up of just uncertainty, but that's a good sign because there's like good stress and there's bad stress. And the bad stress is I'm getting chased by a lion. I'm going to die. I need to survive. The good stress is I think about this thing that checked off those first two boxes and it kind of freaks me out a little bit, but in a good way. It's like, yeah, the business is scary, but there's so much upside potential for me in my life and the people I care about and the impact I want to make, et cetera. And it's kind of intimidating. I think intimidating is probably a better word instead of just scared. But I'm willing to accept it. I'm willing to accept the challenge. That's kind of what I get from this question.
And I think it also defines the marketplace too. And as I've told so many of us on this call, to you guys, look for those people in momentum. In other words, you're looking for those people that want to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Does everybody need help? Yes. Can we, will everybody accept our help? No. So I think that's really a core part of this as well. Recognize you're striving for growth. And as you strive for growth, that energy that you have towards growth is going to attract other people that are in that mode.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, I'm kind of interested in this too. Cause like, as far as I know, I'm still learning more about Donald too, but, one thing that we can talk about too is like raising your prices
Mm.
when it comes to this. because
Mhm.
that's scary. I'm in the process where I have a goal in my mind where I would love to charge, and I've told Don this, to have like a six month package of 10K. Currently that's what it is, unless Donald's like, let's challenge you to do 10K per month like he's talked about with other people. Like, I don't know, it's just like, I do want to raise my prices, but what I know is that when I think about that, sure, I could just say I charge this amount now. For me, living into my values, connecting with this too is another piece. I'm thinking about, okay, well, if I was realistically going to raise my prices and be able to back that up with confidence in myself, which is integrity, I feel, for me, I want to know that the current batch of clients that I do have that invested at my lower priced option, they are getting really good results and I'm doing a really good job. Because when I know that I'm getting people their money back, it becomes a no brainer. It's like, yeah, I can charge 20 grand if I can make you 40 grand, or whatever the price is. For me, that's what I kind of think about, instead of just being like, yeah, I'm going to bump my prices. Matt Diavella is a big YouTuber, and he talked about raising his prices where it came down to he started to pay for more expensive equipment that allowed him to do a better job, and he was hiring employees. So it like justified him raising his prices when he talked to his clients, instead of just being like, I'm going to raise my price. It was like, you have I guess like the social proof, I think, is a big piece to it for me, at least. Cause again, I could just raise them. But raising the prices too is just kind of scary, especially if you're going to like double your prices at some point. Even if you have the social proof and you're ready to make the jump, it's like, it can be intimidating, but that's something that causes you to grow. And I think it's like, when we think about this thing that's going to cause us to grow, it does have to align with our values, but there's stepping stones to make that happen, which for me is like, more social proof, more backing, more like positive testimonials, things like that. And there's steps that I need to take in order to get those things that lead to that next step. So that's going to kind of require me to grow. But I love to hear, your guys' take on it in terms of that.
The key to pricing is disconnecting pricing from the object. So I think we struggle with pricing because we're connecting it to a thing. When price is totally is subjective. It's a few months back when I went to Disney World with my family, right? What bottle of water at Costco, 50 cents, maybe 25 cents when you buy the rack of them, right? You go to the airport, it's a few bucks. You get into Disney World, it's $7 for a bottle of water. And it's not even as good as the stuff that you get at Costco. I'm sorry, for a quarter. Why? Right. And so you have to disconnect from the object, and there's other factors in there. So Nancy and I, we kind of brushed on this in a conversation yesterday, about what is the value of something. Well, test a price. So for all you friends, and test higher, because most of the time it's a higher price that works better, not a lower price. It's counterintuitive. Most of the time it's a higher price that works better, not a lower price. I can tell you project after project that I've worked on where we doubled the price and massively increased sales.
So when it comes to, I'm curious about this too, because, I said what I said about how it comes down to like my idea behind raising my prices is that I'd like to have more of this social proof, which kind of is tying, like, it's thinking more about the result.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just said like, you do it by not tying it to the result per se, correct?
Because it's not that. Okay, so see, that's very tactical, technical, and people buy emotionally. They don't buy logically. So tying, yes, we have to sell on results, but that's still a logical sell. You want to sell on the emotion part of it. So sell to the emotion part of it. If Carly can help a woman achieve her goal of having a natural childbirth, and that's probably a once in a lifetime event. It's not like I'm going to do this 5 or 6 times, right? It's like not happening, right? For the right woman, that's $1 million value. That's $1 million. right? For the right woman, that's $1 million. Think about that for a moment and sit with that and hold that number. Now, spending 10, 20,000 for that is a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a bargain. What are you tying it to? If I was on a desert island and in one hand I had a bar of gold and the other hand a taco, and there's no banks in sight, what has more value? Unless you don't like tacos, but you can't eat a bar of gold on a desert island. Does that make sense, James?
Yeah.
No, it's something else.
Yeah, well, I think it's the confidence aspect too of like
Mm,
I can get this person the
that's
results.
emotion.
Right.
Confidence is an emotion.
Right. I think
And
yeah, when,
and if you're in tune with what gives you life and you're aligned with your core values and you're in growth mode, do you feel the difference?
hmm.
That help you guys out?
Yeah, I find that pretty interesting. It's
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, when you think about the dream or goal that you have in mind, does it give you more life, make you feel electric, align with your core values, who you are, what you stand for, truly? And is it a little intimidating? Going to require you to grow. In this case, when I talk about this, being transparent, it requires me to grow, not from a tactical perspective, but more an emotional side. So it does cause me to grow. See what I mean? That's a takeaway from me just from
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So the question number 4: does it require help from a higher power? And this is always an interesting one because people have different beliefs in like
Mm-hmm.
what higher power is to them. My girlfriend and I were actually just having a really in-depth conversation about this morning. We're not religious. We both didn't grow up in like a religious household by any means. I studied from Mary Morrissey, who studied many religions. That's where I learned these questions from. She studied like, Christianity, Buddhism, and a ton of different, pretty much every religion under the sun. She was an ordained minister for 10 plus years. And it was really interesting just to hear from her. And if you ever get to see her speak, do it, because you kind of like respect, because I don't know, it's really, it's not to get like too crazy into like religion or anything like politics or anything like that too, but it's like, um, she's just studied so many so deeply that she's found common threads with all of them. And it's really interesting to see of like, well, the Bible, it says this, but then in Buddhism, it talks about this, but they both have the same meaning, you know? But I think the bottom line is that no matter what it is that you do believe in with like a higher power, it comes down to believing it's something that's bigger than just you. And I was actually having this like literally right before this call. I was talking about how we were talking about like manifestation, and my girlfriend's very good at like questioning, everything. And we both do that too and like come to understanding. So it's interesting conversation. But it's like how people say that, oh, if I believe in God and have faith in God, then I can achieve this goal. And that if someone who doesn't believe in God, they can still achieve great things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about like entrepreneurship is that you want to start a business or grow a business. And if you put all the focus on it's all on me, then that gets stressful and you start to kind of like create a linear viewpoint of what's possible, and it feels stress. And then, with the sales call or something, if you're feeling all this stress, you go into your sales call, I need to get this client. You're so attached to the outcome then that you don't get the client, because it shows and materializes in the way that you say things, your tone of voice, the shakiness in your voice, whatever, because you feel like everything's on you. But when we believe in something bigger than us, whether it is God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, I think that humans are very capable of doing these things. We're very creative people, but then we can detach from the outcome. And one of my favorite mantras that I learned from a coach that I worked with who learned this from Jack Canfield was high intention, low attachment. And I think that that's really like the sweet spot. Because when you can believe in something bigger than yourself, you start to detach from it's all on me, but you still do the thing you have to do. Because if we want to manifest something, we have to take actions. you can think about it first, but then you have to actually do something. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. I want to date people, but I'm sitting on my couch and never getting out there dating people. How are you supposed to get someone?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's the off chance that you have a little party, which still required an action to invite people, and the person comes into your house and then you guys hit it off, but it's still required action, you know? So I think that, you know, believing in a higher power allows us to detach from the outcome a bit more so that we can have a cleaner energy taking the actions that we need to take no matter what to manifest that thing. And that's kind of like, this is a big topic, but that's kind of my take.
It's huge. You know, when I trained with Chet initially, and the first time I heard him say first to detach from the outcome, I thought it was so incongruous with everything else he was saying, because he was telling us close like a vice, right? And I go, wait a minute, detach from the outcome? That doesn't make sense. And it took a while for me to go, oh, right. And so, you know, it's like Richard and I have gone back and forth, like messaging on connecting with people on LinkedIn. And it's the same kind of thing on the front. If you're connecting with people and you're thinking, oh, I'm trying to connect with people so that I can generate conversations to generate clients, it creates a blockage in the flow out there, right? But if you just kind of like go to the universe, I'm just going to connect with people and let it fall where it does. Now, of course, I'm going to point myself in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just going to go out in the field and pull up every plant, right? I'm going to look for specific kinds of weeds or whatever, or if I'm looking for mushrooms, right? But I'm going to detach from the outcome because there's other things in play that will help me get there. And the more attached I am to the outcome, it's kind of counterintuitive. The harder it is to achieve it.
Yeah, this goes back to that thing too. From what I've learned about this is the energy aspect we talked about earlier about like values or no, it was doing what gives you life and just paying attention and being aware of your energy, because that's really what it comes down to. Like on a sales call, you know, what I've been learning from Donald too, and I've heard it before, but I'm just hearing it from a new lens too, going through the training again about how you prepare ahead of the call, not just looking into the client, knowing more about them, but the energy that you bring to that call and paying attention to your emotions beforehand, like all of it makes, and even on the call too, like it's something I think that great salespeople are really good at, is just being in tune with how they feel. Because if you're feeling a certain way, then the prospect's going to feel that way too, the other person on the line.
Yeah.
Can I share my screen real quick? Or is that
absolutely? Yeah. Does it let you do the way I've got it set up? Yep. Yeah.
You see this?
Yep.
So the guy I learned this from was a coach of mine. His name's Greg Faxon. He's really awesome. And I refer to a lot of his work. He just really is good at keeping things very simple. But he made this little graph because he talks about this so much, about intention and attachment. And there's low attention or low to high. So the sweet spot is right here. High intention, low attachment. And it's just kind of trust is what he talks about. And the surfboard is because you're in the flow.
Yeah.
And it just feels right. It's like I'm doing the things that I know I need to do, but I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm doing the sales call because I'm doing the marketing and having the conversations that lead to that, because our income is directly correlated to how many times a month we can say, here's what it looks like to work with me. Like, here's how you pay for it, really, you know, getting people to that point. The more conversations we can have. That was like an eye-opening thing for me, because I was like, how many times have I done that this month? And it was zero for a long time. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to get people to the point where I'm saying, here's how much it is. Here's what it looks like to work with me. Do you want to go? The more times I can get people to that. But it's like, you have the intention. Obviously, I have the intention of making sales. I'm going to take people through a process. I'm going to ask the questions and all these things, but I'm not attached to, I got to get the client. It's the same thing with dating too. If you're like, I need a girlfriend right now, it's like, needy's creepy. And that's from, that's like the best saying that's always stuck with me too. But it's interesting to look at the other aspects of this in terms of like understanding energy. Because if you have a high intention and a high attachment, that's where you're doing a lot of sales calls. And yeah, you're doing the thing, but you're also just super attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
And if you have a low intention and a really high attachment to it, you're kind of just too much in your head. That's what I get from this. And not taking enough action, having enough intentionality. It's just like, I really want to get, you know, these sales, but that was me for a long time. I was just stuck in despair because I wasn't doing the things necessary to get people onto the calls to say, here's how much it is, here's what it looks like to work with me, you know, until I changed it and I started to get more phone calls and more times, more opportunity to present to people. And if you have a low intention, low attachment, he says peace, which is interesting. He does break these down more. I can even I'll pop this down in the chat too, just so you guys can read at your leisure. There it is. Because he does break the whole thing down. But yeah, it's very interesting. So the energetic piece is you paying attention to being in flow and feeling more of that kind of trust and feeling like I'm doing the things I need to do and I'm being patient with it. And I'm not attached to whether or not this person, you know, going into a sales call, if you could put this mantra up on your computer or on your wall or something, of I'm going to go into this, I have an intention. Donald was talking about that. I forgot what it was. I need to go back and write it down about what you say to yourself before calls, or like the people you attract. That's a high intention. You're like, these are the people I want to attract and how I want the conversation to go. I have an intention with this call of how I want it to go, obviously, but I'm not attached to the outcome. If it's not the right time, it's not the right time, but I'm going to still take all the steps I need to take. So not to spend more time than needed on this, because we still have another question to go through, but that's, yeah, it's very, very helpful.
And the last question is behind door number 5.
Behind door number 5, we have, does my dream have good in it for others? Pretty straightforward, but it's easy to put, like the real point of this is that it's easy to put so much focus on ourselves and what we want and not think about, is there good in this for others? And this is really interesting too, when it comes to, like, from what I've learned about Carly, about, you know, helping someone bring a child to their life, or finding love in your life is another thing. I want to find the love of my life. How is there good in that for other people? You know, that's kind of selfish, isn't it? No, because when you see two people who are really in love, like actually in love and have been for a very long time, and they just have that chemistry and synergy, isn't that inspiring? Doesn't that make you say, I wish I had that too?
Yeah.
And give you an ideal to work towards. So there is good in it for others, even if it seems to be something selfish, but the key is to find what's good in it for others.
It's kind of, I call it the ripple effect. It's like when you drop the pebble in the water, and it's like when I work with companies, if I can help them make more money, they can pay their employees more, they can hire more people, they can provide more opportunity. And that it affects multiple things, multiple businesses, multiple families, everything. When you help somebody get squared away, if somebody finally realizes that their anxiety and stuff is because they are dealing with a possible UFO abduction scenario, Tom, you know what I mean? And they finally, like, oh my God, could that be it? It's like the watershed unleashes everything. Maybe they get over their drinking problem, or any number of things that were precipitated there. And it's just, the ripple effect is just crazy on that.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, it's pretty straightforward, but there's still important things to think about depending on what you do. Yeah. You know, and I think it's just helpful just to think about those things, because it does remind you that what you're doing isn't just for you, and it's for other people. And I think that people thrive in community and supporting other people as well. Like when you're doing a good deed for someone, like my generosity or kindness value, it just feels good. So when you know that everything you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and the people you're helping and what you're helping them do and the good that's in it for them, I think that really helps on a sales call too. Because it's not the person I just enrolled. It's like, she mentioned that she wanted to have, that her, you know, daughter and granddaughter live 1,000 miles away. She wanted to have more time and autonomy with them. It's like, I can help you with that. Yeah. You know, is it guaranteed going to make it all happen right now? No, but you're going to be in a phenomenal position, you know, better off than you were before you had met me afterwards. And that's my goal. That's really all I can control, is to set them up in a better position than they were before they had met me. That's tricky for me too, because I want to make a big impact in people's lives, but it's not like every single person is just going to be making 100K months or something. Not that I even promised that, or doing something, having the ultimate business. Like I'm not the only person they're ever going to invest in or mentor in themselves, really. But it's like tying into the fact that that's what she really wants and the good in it for her. And I can, at the end of the call, when I'm offering in like the deliverables and stuff of how it's going to work with me, I was tying it into what she was saying. And Donald, I think when you watch my call, you can see this, but I was thinking about it myself and tying it into, this is what you're going to get so that you can have a business that runs by itself, so you can hang out with your kids. She said that she was on calls and she was or when she go on a vacation with her husband, she's on her phone all the time. I used to be that way. I shared the story because it made sense for the call of how I just went to Sweden with my girlfriend. I didn't do any work the whole time for 2 weeks. I've never done that before in my business. I said, I am going to make a point to not bring my computer. I'm just going to take a book, just hang out in my suitcase and just hang out with my family. And I had an amazing time. And I talk about this on my sales page too for one of my products. And in the 2 weeks, not doing any work, just because I set up systems in my business, I ended up making $8,000 when I got back. I didn't do anything for 2 weeks. And so I share that with her because I'm like showing that I've done it, to an extent. I'm not going to say I'm some millionaire or anything, but like I've allowed my business, I created my business in such a way where I can do that. And I can have confidence that things are working for me even when I'm not working. And she's like, that way you can go on a vacation with your husband and not be on the phone because you know that things are working. It's not all manual where you have to be doing everything all the time. This person came from my YouTube channel, which even proves a further point. She literally, I sent like an email being, hey, let's hop onto a call. So yeah, I think that tying in the stories that you share at the right time, the right story at the right time is emotion based, obviously, but tying it into like the desires and emotions that they have, the thing that they want as well.
Yep. Really good stuff. This help you guys out today? When I was trolling James's stuff online and I ran across him being interviewed by somebody going through this, and I says, that's it, right? And when I brought it up to him the other day, he says, gosh, it's been a while ago. Let me revisit that. But this is the good stuff to revisit, and it's, even if you're doing this stuff in your own work, if you've been through this before, right? This is like the core fundamentals that you want to kind of go back and look at it from a different perspective of the time you're at in your business at this point, maybe than where you were a month ago or a year ago or 10 years ago. This is it, my friends. It's right there. James, have you made some money online?
Yeah, definitely.
Have you helped some other people make some money online?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you guys are interested in making some money, I suggest you check him out. His website is profityourknowledge.com. I vet people pretty hard. This guy's the real deal. And I've been impressed with his stuff. We've been getting to know each other the last few weeks, and I really appreciate him coming on and sharing with us today. Thank you very much, James.
Yep. Thank you, man.